Welcome to The Explainer. There's this feeling that the world is just really tense right now. Today, we're going to dig into that feeling and see what a kind of forgotten science of conflict can tell us about what might be coming next.
This comment from a Reddit user, it just hits the nail on the head, right? It perfectly captures this anxiety that so many of us feel about global stability. It's like we're all just living on a giant powder keg, kind of holding our breath, waiting for a spark.
So where is all this tension coming from? Well, to understand it, we need to look at this really powerful concept, one that tries to explain why conflict can feel almost inevitable, especially when the global balance of power starts to shift.
And that concept is called the Thucydides trap. It's named after this ancient Greek historian, and the idea is pretty simple but powerful. It suggests that these huge conflicts, they're not just about one country being aggressive. No, they're often sparked by the really dangerous dynamics that get unleashed when you have one rising power challenging an established one. Okay, so that's the big theory. But to really see how this plays out in the real world, let's zoom in. Let's move away from that general anxiety and look at a very specific, very tangible flashpoint that's been talked about in public sources. So public documents and news reports, they've actually pieced together a potential sequence of events. It all starts with a legal move. The U.S. indicts President Maduro back in April 2020. That's followed by some serious military posturing. And then, this whole timeline escalates to a reported military buildup and, hypothetically, could lead to direct strikes on Venezuelan targets by early 2026. Now, as you could imagine, with any big geopolitical move like this, the story isn't simple. The official reason given, the stated rationale, was all about combating narco-terrorism. But other reports pointed to something else, Venezuela's massive oil reserves. And that, of course, paints a much more complicated picture of what's really driving things.
And here's where it gets really interesting. This is a crucial detail. Military experts who looked at this said that a force of 10,000 troops, well, that's nowhere near enough for a full-scale ground invasion. But you know what it is enough for? Significant airstrikes. And this highlights the potential for what they call a limited action. And that right there, that idea, brings us to the absolute core of what we're talking about today. Okay, so in our case study, we've seen the spark, right? The potential flashpoint. But what's the engine? What's the thing that could take a supposedly limited strike and turn it into an absolute uncontrollable wildfire? Well, this is where some really fascinating research comes into play. So think about it. How do small conflicts become these catastrophic, massive wars? Do you think it's because they start out super intense right from day one? Or maybe it's just because they drag on forever? Well, some really groundbreaking research suggests that, surprisingly, it's neither of those things.
The key finding is just incredible. It turns out the ultimate size of a war, the total number of casualties, isn't really about how big it starts or how long it goes on. Nope, it's almost entirely driven by the fighting intensity growing over time. It is all about one thing: escalation.
And this is where the hidden danger really lies. Because what the research shows is that the type of conflict completely changes its potential to spiral out of control. Think of it this way. Civil wars, the ones fought inside a country, they tend to burn themselves out when they get really big. They run out of fuel, basically, resources fighters. But interstate wars, conflicts between nations, they don't have the same brakes. They can just keep shoveling fuel on the fire.
Yeah, and you can see the breakdown right here. With civil wars, things like war fatigue and just running out of stuff, they act as natural bricks on the conflict. But when you're talking about wars between states, it's a whole different ballgame. Nations can use huge tools like taxation, conscription. They can just keep feeding the war machine, giving them this almost unlimited potential for escalation.
And this quote from the researchers themselves, it just sums it all up perfectly. This idea of sudden, dramatic, totally unpredictable spikes in fighting, that's not some weird exception. It is literally baked into the DNA of war itself.
Okay, so let's connect the dots. What does this whole science of escalation really mean when we look back at our case study, that potential flashpoint in Venezuela?
Well, this is exactly why that distinction between civil and interstate war is so critical. Any military strike, even if you call it limited, that's launched by one country against another, well, by definition, that's an interstate conflict. And that means it instantly gets thrown into the most dangerous category there is, the one that carries this persistent, nagging risk that it will just keep escalating.
And the level of uncertainty this creates it's just staggering. The academic model shows that because of these escalation dynamics, you could start a conflict and the total size could end up anywhere, literally anywhere from 1,000 casualties to over 1 million. That's 3 orders of magnitude. It makes trying to predict the outcome with any precision basically impossible.
So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. The true danger of any conflict isn't how it starts, it's how it might grow, how it could unpredictably evolve. A supposedly limited action between two countries can carry the seeds of an unlimited catastrophe. And that's why understanding this escalation engine is just absolutely crucial for understanding geopolitical risk in the world today.
So in the end, this research really forces us to look past the headlines, to look past the size of the first move. It makes us ask a much harder, much more uncomfortable question. If escalation is the real engine of modern war, are we even watching the right warning signs? Or are we just totally unprepared for the wild, unpredictable nature of conflict itself?